Now for some quick headlines. Good news for tired teens. The American Academy of Pediatrics now urging schools to start at 8:30 and no earlier. That's because they say teens need between 8.5 and 9.5 hours of sleep per night. That's exactly what Ian needs, and he's a grown-up. And is your tap water lowering your IQ? While the CDC has praised fluoride for making people healthier, new studies found children in China and Iran who consumed excessive fluoride from water have a 7-point reduction in their IQ. I worked very hard in that study. Elizabeth?
I can tell. Thanks, Brian. Well, a Florida law that goes into effect this year is giving school districts the option to test their students with some version of a final exam, and that could actually include kindergartners. So should we be testing 5-year-olds? Joining me now for a fair and balanced debate, Jeanne, founder, president, Emeritus, and senior fellow at the Center for Education Reform, and Neal McCluskey, associate director at the Center for Educational Freedom at the Cato Institute. We thank you both for being here. I mean, 5 years old, I've got a 5-year-old, seems a little early for testing, and options sometimes do become quiet mandates. No? Jeanne, I'll start with you. Is there a problem?
You know, great education really is inextricably linked to the issues you've been talking about all morning, Elizabeth. It's tied to a great economy. It's tied to a safe and peaceful and exceptional world. And kindergarten is where our kids learn the formative skills to be able to govern that world. Kindergartners need to learn play. Play is actually one of those non-cognitive things that will help them for life. And whether it's Florida or Indiana or Washington or anywhere else, great schools need great teachers that guide our kindergartners and kids at every other grade to learn how to be great at the things that we want them to know and be able to do to be productive. And is testing in kindergarten a bad idea? Of course it's a bad idea. Our kids need to have assessments. They need literacy and numeracy skills in those ages. And anyone saying, which I don't really think Florida is, but anyone saying that they need to have some standardized test to be able to determine whether they're doing well is simply wrong.
Well, you know, some of the questions they say could be as simple as, you know, what color is this circle? And you'd have to answer red if the circle is red. Neal, what do you say? Is this a problem? Is it backwards?
Well, I think it'd definitely be a problem if this was top-down standardized testing where we have to treat every child as if they're exactly the same, as if people all had the same goals for education. Of course, people don't. Do some people want their children to know their ABCs and maybe spell words and do some reading by the end of kindergarten? Possibly. Other people want their kids to become better socialized? Certainly. So what we need is a system where you don't get these top-down mandates where every child has to be treated the same, but where you can choose schools, you can get different models. And for some people that may mean, yes, I'd like to see a test of my child's literacy, numeracy when they start, when they end kindergarten. But to have any sort of top-down, one-size-fits-all standardized testing regime would be a huge mistake. You
know, I think the fear, though, is that a child could be tracked as early as kindergarten when they're still in such a developmental phase of their education. Jeanne? Do
you know what the best antidote to that kind of concern and worries? The reality is that great schools have great teachers and have lots of freedom and flexibility to do what they need to do, and yet be held accountable for firm outcomes and standards. Every state in this country has standards in place that tell the teacher, the parent, the community what kids should know and be able to do at every level. That's not rocket science. But the problem becomes, Elizabeth, that when we actually mandate from the top down, as Neal was saying, when we require things at every given level and deprive the teacher of her freedom and his flexibility to do what they were trained to do, is when we get a mess. So where are the great schools, where are the great systems, where parents and teachers have freedom to make choices, is where we see the kids who've come from the least advantaged backgrounds doing well, and kids from the most advantaged backgrounds actually go farther than they normally would.
Yeah, we just want kids to be able to learn. Will this help or hinder children? Or is this just more about control over the system?
Well, I think it's a lot more about control, and unfortunately this is the trend we've been seeing for 20, 30 years now, is that we have this mindset where all kids have to be treated the same and they have to move at the exact same rate, treating them as if they are essentially all the same thing and are part of one big sort of American machine. But that's simply not what America is based on. We're based on individual freedom, on creativity, on innovation, and all kids are different. So we need a system that, instead of pretending we can be puppet masters, where we let individual children get the education that's best for them and thrive and lead the lives that ultimately they want to lead.
That's right.
Sure.
That's right. And back to school
learn.
time. Exactly. And back to school time is a great time for us all to rediscover what it is we're supposed to do. It's not just a matter of parent involvement and teachers in the classroom. It's actually a matter of knowing, what does the law say that created this frenzy over kindergarten testing? What's the role of the policymaker? What's the role of us, and we as parents, which should be more power and more control?
Jenny Allen, Neal McCluskey, we want to thank you for being with us today. I give you an A+.
Thanks.
Take care.